back to the ETF Inspector. It's Thursday, June 5th, Dividend X Day for our YieldMax funds that we're talking about today. In this video, we will be covering ULTY, YieldMax's Ultra Option Income Strategy ETF, and LFGY, YieldMax's Crypto Industry and Tech Portfolio Option Income ETF. That's a mouthful. So if you're in either of these funds, you got the declaration yesterday, so as long as you made a purchase yesterday, those shares would also count towards the distribution getting paid on Friday, so long as you started the day today with the shares. Don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure you could even have sold them today during the market open period and still qualify. Makes sense, though, because the market automatically opens up down the amount that they're paying out. So you wouldn't really have made out real well selling it that way. We're up to 554 subscribers on our goal of 1,000. So if you haven't subscribed already, please help me out. Click the subscribe button. Got lots of videos for you to catch you up if you haven't been following along, but we do day-by-day tracking of how the money that we put into these funds gets used. You get to see what shares it buys, what options it sells, and whether or not things are making money. So that's the point of this. Whole lot of information, not a lot of entertainment. But if you stick around to the end, I give you a dad joke of the day as a little reward for listening to me talk forever. As usual, just a reminder, I'm on X, ETF Inspector. I don't even know if you search ETF Inspector or at ETF_Inspector1. But either way, you'll find me. I repost YieldMax's stuff as well as let you know videos are coming out. So I apologize in advance. I'm very tired. Didn't get any sleep last night. Then had to go through the workday today. And now trying to get this out before I go to bed tonight. So you might have to put me on like 1.5 or 2.0 speed just to make this video get going. But still wanted to bring you the information. So we will look. Big picture, the market had a huge sell-off. Most of our funds were down. A lot of the funds. Apparently, there was a little bit of a billionaire battle between President Trump and Elon Musk, and it seems like Tesla took a beating on it. So, big picture, mostly down. As far as ULTY is concerned, the biggest gainer for the day was AST Space Mobile, up 7.53%. ULTY ended up down 2.19% overall. And believe it or not, Tesla was not the biggest loser in this fund. CoreWeave lost 17.2%. But if there's an honorable mention for losing money, it goes to Tesla with a loss of 14.26%. Might as well hit it while we're here. LFGY also down 2.71%. The biggest winner, this is sad, when your biggest winner is 1.42% NU Holdings, and Tesla got the biggest loser on LFGY with, again, negative 14.26%. We got to see some pretty interesting stuff, so pretty good size amount of trades for LFGY, and as usual, tons and tons of trades for ULTY. So let's dig in and take a look. We will start with ULTY, and we'll start with the trades. That way we can avoid talking about options that have already been swapped out. So for some reason, they just keep on adding stocks. They are over the 30 mark, I'm pretty sure, and just keep going. So Applied Digital Corporation, APLD, they bought. So it doesn't mean contracts, even though it says contracts here. It doesn't mean contracts if it's just the stocks. So I have a different formula. That's why you got that little green notch saying different formula, because these multiply the contracts by the price by 100, whereas shares just multiply this item under contracts. It would be shares by the price. So they spent $6.7 million buying 500,000 shares of APLD, and then immediately started trading options on them, the max they could, sold 5,000 calls at $15, and overall profiting $185,000. And they sold them out till next Friday. It's a little late in this week. AVGO, which is Broadcom, they closed out their 270 calls and opened 285. So that one, went through their strike price, cost them money, had to pay $6.27 a share to close them out, and only got $2.19 to open the new ones. But they still kept it within the same week, so they're being pretty aggressive, trying to scratch and claw. But they lost $188,000 on that trade. FTAI, similarly, they had to close out their 122s that had been blown through. I guess we'll use that terminology, and sold 131. So they had to move their strike price up by $9. And on this one, they did go out to next week to try and get more premium, but again, paid a whole lot more than they received. $143,000 loss. Hims and Hers closed out their $60 calls for this Friday, opened up $58 calls for next Friday, made almost a $1.50 share profit on that, so $282,000 win on that one. IonQ, this will be a win too. Closed out their 4350s, paying 8 cents a piece, and sold 41s for next Friday at $1.13 a piece. Overall, collecting an additional $344,000. MicroStrategy, again, closing out their 405s for 20 cents a piece and selling 387.50. So pretty decent drop in price, collecting $6.71. But the insurance policies on these, buying the puts to protect their shares, are pretty pricey here. Either way, made almost $200,000 profit. Palantir made a lot of moves here, closing out their 136s for this Friday, selling 128s for next Friday. Overall, profiting $185,000. I don't go into the puts because they're not really there for profit. They're just protection. Rigetti, another win, closing out their $13 calls for this Friday, opening $12.50 calls for next Friday. Only had to pay 3 cents to close them out, and actually got 3 cents selling the puts, so pretty much free to close out that position, and collecting 24 cents per share times 10,000 contracts times 100 shares per contract. So $140,000 profit. Tesla, this was pretty interesting. So if you take a look here, Tesla started tanking, and they closed their 355s for this Friday, paid 11 cents for them. They opened 335s still for this Friday and collected 96 cents. And then as it kept on going even lower, they turned around and sold those, or not sold, bought to close for 29. So they closed out their first ones at a win, sold some for 96 cents, and then bought them back for 29 cents later on in the same day. So they double dipped, won twice on today, and then went ahead and sold next Friday 320s, collecting over $470,000 profit. So I can definitely appreciate that. And UNH, United Health, they don't own any shares. They just are doing a put spread on this one. This is the only stock in this fund that they have a put spread on, and they were losing on it. So they had to close these 312.50s, paid $12.80 per share for them, and then sold 305s for $9.35. Lost $168,000. So all in all, trading for the day, they actually made $1.3 million profit in trades. All right. Let's zoom in a little. So now we'll take a look at the holdings, closing prices, and what that did for our options, taking them in or out of the money. I've been kind of playing around with the idea of not sitting here line by line and telling you the change in market value. I'm not for sure I want to go with it yet, but since I'm tired and since it's late tonight, I think today I will just tell you where the stock ended, the percent change, the change in the options, and then at the bottom you get to see the total amount gained or lost anyway. So um, maybe I'll just highlight the big wins and the big losses. So okay, AI went down 3.5%. That took their calls at 27 to 6.5% out of the money. They closed at 25.34 per share. So those expire tomorrow. These are looking like a win. AST Space Mobile went up 7.5%. So we made a not made increased in value over $1 million, but it also took the options into the money, making them more expensive to close out. Ended at $30.85. They didn't go after them though, so I guess they're hoping for a pullback tomorrow. Broadcom, we talked about it, lost 0.44% to 259.93, and for some reason they went ahead and traded these out. They're only 3.8% out of the money. I'm not sure why they did that. I didn't look at the intraday. I mean, maybe the stock went up and went against them and then came back down. Coinbase lost 4.6% to 244.20. That helped get their calls a little bit further away from the money, 6.5% almost, or a little over $500,000 loss in value. CrowdStrike up 0.5% to 462.94. Their calls are still 2.6% out of the money. CoreWeave, that was the big loser on ULTY, lost 17.2%. That was a decrease in value of over $3.3 million to the fund. They ended at 135.05, and their calls are way out of the money, 18.5% and 25.8%. First Solar up 2.5% to 163.84. That took their calls deeper in the money to 3.87%. They're at 157.50. That's where we need the stock to come back to tomorrow to not take a big loss buying those to close. FTAI Aviation, I'll be honest, other than in this fund, I've never heard of them. Up a little over 0.5% to 123.49. They went ahead and swapped out their 122s that were slightly deeper in the money, but they still have 123s that are just 0.4% in the money. So they should become reasonably less expensive tomorrow. That does not make sense. Why would a 123 cost more than a 122? Oh, I just copy the information that they put out. So holdings come out in the mornings, and then trades come out in the afternoons. So we are looking at how things started on this side with the holdings and the prices, and then over here is how things ended for the day. GameStop down 1.67% to 29.45. Their calls are 12% out of the money. Hims and Hers, we talked about, they rolled those positions. That was a win. They lost 1.57% to 52.77. Robinhood down 0.3% to 72.51. Still 3.4% out of the money on calls expiring tomorrow. IonQ lost 7.5% to $36.66, over $1.1 million decrease in value. They went ahead and bought to close these 43.50s pretty cheap and sold new ones. They still have 43s that are 17% out of the money, set to expire tomorrow. Sorry, I'm dying of thirst. Lululemon down 1.3%, $330.78. Their calls are 8.8% out of the money. Mara Holdings down over 5% to 14.88, over $500,000 decrease in value. Calls that actually helped. So their 15s were almost 5%, 4% in the money, 5% in the money, and now they are out of the money. So that was definitely helpful to bring down the price of those to close. And then they still have others that are 10.9% out of the money. MicroStrategy down almost 2.5% to 368.79. These got cheap enough that they closed them out and rolled them to next week. Nvidia lost 1.36% to 139.99. Getting their calls a little further away from the money, 2.86%. So another day goes by, another drop in price, and they will be nice and cheap to close out unless they have a big day tomorrow. Oklo lost almost 4% to 47.16, over $500,000 decrease in value, and their calls will be cheap to close out tomorrow at 12.3% out of the money. Oracle up 1.8% to 171.14, still 3.7% out of the money. These they just opened these this week, and they are for next Friday. 177.50 is where we need them to trade below. Palantir lost 7.77. So normally 777 is lucky, I guess, but not for them. Closed at 119.91, over $1.3 million decrease in value. They went ahead and closed their further out of the money calls at 136, but the ones left are still 10% out of the money and should be nice and cheap to close tomorrow. Reddit lost over 5%, just over $700,000 decrease in value. $112.24 was the closing price, and their 117s are 4.24% out of the money. Rigetti lost 7.8%, almost $1 million in value, to 1089, and that took their 13s far enough away that they went ahead and closed them out and bought new ones, or sold new ones, I'm sorry. RH down 1.5% to 175.50. Still have 185s and 200s calls sold. They're 5.4 and almost 14% out of the money. SMCI down 7.6%, nearly $1 million decrease in value. $40.77 closing price, and their calls are 4.2% out of the money. Snowflake up 0.25% to 210.10, taking their 210 calls 0.05% in the money. So they were expensive today, but if they stay around here, they'll end up pretty cheap to close. This could still be a win even though they're in the money. TNA, the triple leverage fund, was unchanged, 0%. So 30.49. So basically the value of their options would have just gone down today because of time decay. So they're 1.6% in the money on the 30s and 0.03% out of the money on the $30.50 strike price. TQQQ down 2.33%. That helped. They were in the money. They're now out of the money by 1.18%, making these cheaper to close. 72.15 was the closing price. Tesla had a rough day. Lost over $2.1 million value in the fund. 14.26% decrease to 284.70. And they went ahead and bought the close. We talked about it. They bought the close, sold them, and then bought the close those two, and then sold for next week. So they made us some good money on that bad day. United Health closed at 295.84. It just keeps on going down ever since we started selling put spreads on them. So they went ahead and closed these out and started a new one. But it's actually the new ones are in the money because I remember they were 305. So they're already $10 in the money on the new ones. Upstart up 1.42% to 51.38. They have calls that are 1.2 and 5% out of the money. So should end up being winners unless Upstart has a big day tomorrow. Vertiv Holding down a little over 0.5% to 112.22. Just out of the money with their 113s, 0.7%. And finally, Vistra Corp lost 1.5%. So it's good they didn't close these out. They got another day of time decay as well as a drop in the strike or in the price, bringing the strikes closer. So they're still 0.5% in the money, but they will become much cheaper to close tomorrow. So all said and done, the fund lost $12.69 million in value. I'm sorry, I can't talk. Whew. All right, we'll get through this. There was an increase in shares of 1.9, almost 2 million. So we've been adding pretty big numbers lately. This fund's kind of starting to take off. Over 61 million outstanding shares now, and it's worth around 380 million. I say around because the holdings aren't updated for how things ended. So, all right, that's ULTY. Let's go ahead and look at LFGY. What? Does anybody know why it does that? I have everything pre-staged and ready before I turn the video on, and then it shrinks these things down to nothing. Okay, LFGY is a little bit different, so we don't go into every single trade. I'll just talk about the ones that they actually closed out and started new ones. Otherwise, we'll be talking about $100 trades, and you don't want to hear it, and I don't want to say it. So Bitdeer closed out their $16 strikes for this Friday and opened 1450s for next week. I didn't break it down, but obviously bringing in 101 and only spending 16, that's a win. Just sold a little bit more Clean Spark, sold a little more Coin, Core Scientific, more Galaxy Digital, more GameStop. Went ahead and rolled their positions, closed their Robinhood $69 strikes. That was a loss, so they paid $7.11 per share to close them. They sold 84s for next Friday and only were able to collect $1.39. So overall, pretty big loss, $560-ish, $70-ish $1,000. Sold some more calls for HUT, sold more for Mara, added a little bit to the MBTX position, just 7 contracts, sold a little more MicroStrategy. Went ahead and closed out their NU holdings. This was a win. Closed out their 1250s and for this week and sold 1250s for next week. As you can see, what do we got? Roughly 25-ish thousand compared to that. So 26-ish $1,000 profit there. Nvidia sold some more calls. So did Opera. So did PayPal. So did Riot. And then Tesla. This will be another win. Closed out their 372.50s for this Friday and sold 337.50s for next Friday. Got a nice price for them too. Overall making nearly $80,000 profit, and they'll probably end up closing them tomorrow because the price dropped all the way into the 2s. And then finally XYZ sold some more as well. All in all, resulted in a loss of $356,000 on the trading day. So not a lot of trading this week for LFGY. They didn't close any positions Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. I don't think. They didn't even have trades on Wednesday. So just sold a little more. Today they closed a couple, and it was just really one loser that cost them. So tomorrow is going to tell the story of the whole week on whether they basically win their trades or lose them, and it's going to determine how much money we get paid out next week. So make sure you come check out tomorrow's after close video. It's going to let you know how things went. I think I told you LFGY closed at 38.52. That's because they paid out their distribution. It came out of the stock price when they opened today, and then everything dropped, so it kind of double dipped, hurt a little extra. All right, Bitdeer lost 4.68% to 1263. This was one of the ones, the 16s they rolled because they were so far out of the money, but they still have 1350s that are 6.89% out of the money. If you're new here, color coding. Red being in the money means we're going to end up having to pay a decent amount of money to close out these options. Probably more than what we sold them for, so it'll end up most likely being a loss. Yellow is within 5%, so it's out of the money, but it's within 5%. So it's in our favor, but it's close. So we're a little nervous. And then green is greater than 5%. But also, if you know, we're talking about high volatility stocks. So really 5%'s not safe either. I just had to pick something. Okay, Clean Spark lost 5.35% to 902. 5 and 10% out of the money on their calls expiring tomorrow. Coinbase lost 4.6% to 244.20, taking their calls into the green as far as being 6.4% out of the money. Over $700,000 loss in value on that one. Core Scientific down 5% to 1193. It's good that they didn't close those out yesterday because they were obviously 8.6% in the money. Now they're only 3.6% in the money. So we're still losing on them, but we're going to pay a whole lot less to close them out than we would have if we did it yesterday. Galaxy lost 5%, taking those to 31% out of the money at 1907. I'm surprised they didn't go ahead and roll them closer. GameStop lost 1.67% to 29.45. They have calls 5 and 29% out of the money, but realistically the majority are at the 1,600 contracts. Robinhood, these were the ones they went against them, and they went ahead and closed them out and rolled them next week for a loss, but up 0.33% to 72.51. Hut 8 Corp down 4% to 16.32, and as you can see, they were basically in the money 3% as of yesterday. So again, good one that they didn't close it just because it went against them, because now it's in their favor. iBit or iShares Bit Trust ETF, no options traded on it, just straight up own the shares. Lost almost 3% to 57.87, a decrease of nearly 350,000 in value. Similarly, Mara also lost 5%, and it was a decrease of nearly $500,000 in value, closing at 14.88. And that's another one, right? So they were in the money as of yesterday, but with today's loss of 5%, they are out of the money decently. So they went from being expensive to close to they're going to be pennies. MBTX, we don't own any shares. We just trade this call spread, and it is currently in our favor, 7.82% out of the money at 241.14. But those are out into July or June 20th, so we're not out of the woods yet. Mercado Libre up 0.3% to $2,581.74. So their calls are still 0.8% out of the money, with one more trading day left. They're at 2602.50 that we needed to stay under. MicroStrategy lost nearly 2.5% to 368.79, over $300,000 decrease in value. They have calls at 385 and 387.50, even amount of contracts for those, 4.4 and 5% out of the money. NU Holdings was the big winner in LFGY today, up 1.42% to $12.11, and they went ahead and closed these out and started new positions for next week. NVIDIA lost 1.36% to 139.99. Calls are 1.44% out of the money, so obviously they were pretty much right at the money when things started and bought us a little bit of breathing room. Opera down 1.45% to 18.36. Calls are 8.9% out of the money, but those, again, another one, they're till June 20th, so we've still got some time left on them. PayPal lost 0.45% to 72.47. Still in the money by 0.65, but today went in our favor as far as time decay as well as the stock movement. So another good one that they didn't close out yesterday. Riot lost 5.37% to 8.99. That helped a lot because these nines were well in the money, and now they're 0.1% out of the money. And the 950s were right at the money, and now they are decently away from the money. So today's loss in stock price turned these into winners most likely. Tesla, big loser, 14.26%, over $800,000 decrease in value, 284.70. They closed out those 372.50s and chose a new price for next week. And finally, Block, down 0.4% to 63.60. These were pretty close to the money. They still are, obviously, but they moved away from it. So another good job. So these guys don't panic when things go in the money, and they generally have been making the right decision. Overall decrease in value of $4.3 million in the fund today. No change in outstanding shares. So that is all I have for you. So only thing left is the dad joke. So before I do, thank you. Thanks for watching. I'm sorry. Very low energy. Very tired. So put it on fast forward. Hopefully that's what you did. So dad joke of the day. What kind of pet makes the most noise? A trumpet. That one takes a minute. You gotta see the word trumpet to see pet. It's pretty bad if you have to explain the joke. Okay. Okay, tomorrow's the last trading day of the week, so hopefully you guys won all your trades and you're going to be able to roll to some more profitable ones next week. Have a good night.